102. There's only 4 of us who care about building wealth. Oh, 3. Crap. I started and someone left. That's not a good sign. Yep, I think they're back. Whose iPhone?
Silva, I'm driving.
Oh, spectacular.
I've been listening to you and multitasking all the time.
Hold on, I'm going to rename you so I know who it is. There we go. Now it says Silva. Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks.
That's right. All righty. Mrs. Orr is in surgery. All right, so I'm just going to unmute everybody because there's only a few of us.
Okay. Well, I knew I'm going to be on the road, so I emailed you last night my ahas from the Wealth Can't Wait.
I know, I'm going to read them. I like them.
I don't know. Oh, you did get them?
I did. I'm going to read them right now. I mean, out loud. So,
I feel honored. Thank you.
So the idea of today was to really kind of put a period on the end of the Wealth Can't Wait sentence. We've kind of been through this book up, down, and sideways. I'm not sure there's all that much else to talk about with this book, except to just kind of give some overall ahas. Anybody have something they want to put on the table from Wealth Can't Wait that that makes sense as a powerful aha?
Get started, wherever you are.
Yeah, get started. Yeah, just do it.
Get started and do those audits. I think those audits that he suggests are smart to do, and pay attention. Knowing where you are, no matter where you are, knowing where you are at any given moment is powerful. And then take the next step with a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll read a couple of Silva's because she's up driving. The biggest obstacle to wealth is fear. People are afraid to think big, but if you think small, you'll only achieve small things.
High five.
Yeah. Here's another one. In investing, what is comfortable is rarely profitable. I think you can literally take the word investing out of that aha and put in life. In life, what is comfortable is rarely profitable. Like, you gotta get outside of your comfort zone. I asked everyone to do an exercise the other day at 4:30, and it was the exercise of put a 0 on the end of what you made last year. Start writing down the, and I did that. I don't think I brought it in. Oh, I did bring it in. I did that. I started to discuss it this morning with Debbie, and the idea of some of the tasks or some of the strategies to start moving forward on to really 10x where your income. Man, oh man, talk about fear.
Well, and what I said in response was, it doesn't matter if you start with 30,000 and put a 0 on it, or you start with 300,000 and put a 0 on it. The unbelievability of it is just the same. Yeah. And the reality of it is you can never get there, ever get there, doing the same things you're doing today.
Yeah.
You got to do some radically different things.
Yeah, that is so true.
And the thing is,
when I look at this list, I think to myself, there's very little on here that makes me comfortable. Very little.
No.
Well, you know what I think about is what brings comfort is someone else has already done it.
So, it's doable.
You already know it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like somebody else was what was his name, who broke the 4-minute mile? Roger. Addis, Robert, somebody, I forget.
Bannister, Roger Bannister. Roger Bannister.
That's really the name?
Roger Bannister. Yes.
Huh.
Yes. Right?
I
I
think
don't
so.
know.
That's the, yeah,
Doesn't
yeah.
sound-
That's it.
Someone should Google it.
I'll Google it. I'm pretty sure that's right.
So yeah, Roger Bannister, maybe that is it. And then there was another one that Silva sent that I thought was really good. If you don't have a daily agenda, the first person you meet each day will give you theirs.
That's right.
And then lastly, I had a conversation this morning with our staff, and I wish I would have opened this before I had that conversation, Silva, because the last one you put here that Smokey Garrett said, if you're going to be a bear, you might as well be a grizzly.
Mm.
Like, oh, I could have used that to close my meeting this morning, right? Because we were just talking about you know what the future holds, and the simple reality that we have an opportunity right now to take territory and close market share if we do the right things and figure out how to kind of squash the competition, and whether that's a conversation around your sales business or the market center, it's all the same conversation, right? It's about what are we doing to make sure that we're smashing the competition and obliterating them. I mean, it's not like the whole idea, oh, there's plenty for everyone. I'm so tired of that. I'm like, what if there wasn't plenty for everyone? What if we had to eat some people? Who are we going to eat? Did you ever see that movie Alive? The Chilean or the Argentinian
No.
Yes. In the mountains.
Deliberately no.
who's flying to Chile, and they crash in the Andes, and they have to start eating the dead people. Anyway, it's a really good movie. It sounds gross, but it was a really good movie. Anything else from Wealth Can't Wait? Are we ready to move on to Profit First?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Profit First. There's my friend Mike McAllowitz.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
I'm sorry I was driving and you froze. Did you mention this? You are who you hang out with.
Yeah, no, I didn't mention that one, but that's another great aha. Another great aha. Yeah,
Yeah, that's huge for me. Just to remove negative people or people that are not going in the same direction as you are.
yeah. Yeah, and that's hard sometimes, right? It can be crazy hard.
Yes.
And yet the idea of being with people who support the goals that you want to achieve, and who don't shy away from the I find that more and more I want to surround myself with people who don't scrunch up their nose and get weird when I want to have a conversation about putting a 0 on the end of the number, right? Because and everyone's like, oh, well, I couldn't possibly talk with you about that because then you'd know what my number was. Like, really? Ugh. That has begun to annoy me, right? It's like they're just numbers. Who cares, right? There is a reality that some people have more than others, and none of us know who that is. Of the, how many of us are on this call? Of the 7 of us, there's somebody who has the most and somebody who has the least. And does it really matter which one of those people you are if we're all looking to move in a direction to magnify by a factor of 10 what our income is? I say to me that doesn't matter. I don't get it.
Everything's relative also. You know, everybody's standard of living and everybody's it's very relative. Like, for example, I don't have children, so I, by virtue of that, need less to live because I'm not paying for things that everyone else is paying for. And not that, I acknowledge that, I just know that my standard of living, if I make the same amount of money as someone with 4 kids, I'm leading, a better, my standard of living is higher.
Yeah, there's there's oftentimes more disposable income in a scenario like yours versus a scenario where someone has other obligations, right? And yet at the same time, that's I think is what's so important about. I think this is like the third time today I've used this bold law. Don't compare your insides to someone else's outsides, because it's so easy to look and say, oh, well, Diane doesn't have any children, so she must have tons of money because she doesn't get to spend what we have to spend on. Well, first of all, people who have children made that choice, right? It wasn't like they were dumped at your doorstep and someone put a gun to your head and said, okay, raise these children. So it was a choice, and you have no idea what, in that example, what Diane's other obligations might be, right? Diane may have an aging parent that she's fully financially responsible for that the rest of us don't. And so it's that balancing act of knowing what it is and just being okay with what it is and going for it no matter what, regardless of the obligations, whether you have them or don't.
I think Ben Kinney makes the case for no matter what you have, you don't have enough. And that the whole thing of being satisfied with where you are is unacceptable, because it's not a sense of greed, it's a sense of being able to contribute. And he makes a very strong case for that. We're going through his wealth program at the same time. Chris, are you doing that as well? Are you doing the Ben Kinney program?
Oh, I'm not.
Not right now. He makes it very compellingly. What would you do if someone in your family had a health issue that required hundreds of thousands of dollars? Do you have enough for that? Are you prepared? And it's almost like there's never a top number. We need to continue to strive to be prepared. The way he makes that point, it's never hit me harder.
Yeah. Well, and it's a whole different level of comfort and security when you are prepared. I went to visit my grandmother this past weekend because we hadn't seen her literally since my birthday in early March, and she's been sequestered in her house all by herself with my uncle dropping food at the front door. And so we went out and we sat outside and distanced and masked and ordered food in, ate outside, and it was a great visit. And so when Steve and Lily went to pick up the food, my grandmother said to me, "So how are you doing financially?" And I said, "Fine, thank you." And she said, because I saved money, because as soon as this thing went, right, she made a specific decision that as soon as this health issue hit the world, that she was going to divert some of her funds into a specific fund just in case her kids or her grandkids needed assistance, right? And I thought to myself, isn't that a smart path that isn't that a level of security that she has created for herself, that she has enough to take care of herself. She knows she has enough to take care of herself, that she can now start taking care of others if they need it, right? And that to me is what Debbie's talking about. It becomes not about us after a while. It becomes how do you take care of other people? How do you take care of the world, right? I came home the other day to a conversation that my son was having with whomever would listen to him, and he was spouting on about billionaires and how they should be. There are some billionaires who don't do good in the world, and there should be a standard where they should have to give up some of their money and all this stuff. And I thought to myself, okay, so I'm going to walk out of the house and walk back in, and maybe have a different version of this conversation, because without people who have money, a lot of the charities that exist in the world, a lot of the good that happens in the world wouldn't be funded, because they're funded by people who have money. Now, maybe Jeff Bezos is the person he was picking on isn't one of those people. I don't know enough about Jeff Bezos to know, and I think neither does he, was the point I was looking to make to him. But right, so at some point it becomes just bigger than ourselves. So how does Profit First, since that's what we're here to talk about, how does Profit First help us on that path to that? What were your ahas from the first 2 chapters of this, which brought us kind of right to the edge of taking the action on it?
So
I like
There's
how he compares his finances to a dieting, and how you have to like take smaller portions and are able to control how you spend or eat.
Yeah, the small plates portion, that's a really powerful analogy, I think, right? Chris and I are in the middle of a weight challenge, so it's actually a very specific analogy to what we're doing right now, right? Small plates go a long way.
I need smaller plates.
Jeff Bezos, by the way, contributes $20 million to the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center. $20 million. I don't have that much to give.
Yeah, well, you're a slacker. You got to work on that. I'll be sure to bring that home to Noah. Say, by the way, did you know this, Mr. Know-It-All? What else? Chris, you've been studying this for a while. What, when you went back to these first 2 chapters, what were your takeaways from these first 2 chapters?
It's a simple solution. Take your profit first. And I highlighted a quote here. We're going to make your business permanently profitable starting with your very next deposit, and it's 100% true. All you need to do is make that account that says profit first, put it there, even if it's 1%, which literally could be $10. And if you keep it, you're profitable.
Yeah.
And then just figure out how to increase that percentage.
You know, what's cool about the simplicity of this is, I'll tie it back to something Gary's been saying a lot in the last month or so, is that knowing where we are today, every $10 that you save today is really likely to be worth far more than $10 a year or 3 years from now. Right? I mean, clearly, he's not just talking about interest, because that's right. Like a. But the idea is, as the market continues to shift and change, we may have more buying power with that $10 tomorrow than we do today. So the exponential growth happens just because you've taken the action. You don't even have to do anything with it. That's fun.
Well, the firstness of it, I think, is really important, because I love his, the universe has a way of knowing how much we have in our wallet. And whatever that number is, we used to say that about the tax man. Tax man knows what we've got in our wallet, and he keeps saying, okay, I'll take all of it, please. It's not the universe. It's that you haven't, like Dave Ramsey says, given a name to where those dollars need to go. And if you haven't, they'll just evaporate. I love his little chart with the point A crisis and the point B vision, and that you can address the crisis in a whole lot of different directions. But in order to stay true to your vision of where you really want to be going, you can't do that if you haven't put profit first. Because wealth is defined as being able to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want. And you can only do that if you've got a bucket of it.
Yeah, it's the freedom conversation all over again, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Annette, you're talking about the chart on page 23, right?
I am. Mm-hmm.
Crisis to vision. And what we know is that crisis living, right? It's a symptom. Inside of your finances, you can tell when you're living, when you're in crisis living, because it's oftentimes paycheck to paycheck. There's no ability to manage the money, because the emergencies seem to pop up faster than you can deal with them. And the idea of taking the profit out first, even if it's to, I mean, since we're doing Dave Ramsey at the same time, even if it's to create that emergency fund, right? I mean, what if you did use the profit first method to create an emergency fund and then turned the emergency fund off and then started a profit account? I mean, what you use that profit account for, as long as you're saving it, it's still profit. And so the idea, Sylvia, your car looks just like your living room now. And I think that one of the big questions that comes up all the time in these first two chapters is, so if the idea of manipulating the formula from income minus expenses equals profit to income minus profit equals expenses, if that's the idea, I think we have to look at two things. The first thing is what is the formula, no matter which way you write it, the first way or the second way, what does it start with?
Income.
Yeah.
Income.
Right.
Income.
And so we do have to constantly remember that regardless of where we want to go with how much profit we want to save and this whole system of squirreling it away beforehand, we actually have to make money, right? Because if we're not making any money, well, then we have bigger issues, right? And the way I think that Mike Michalowicz addresses that is if you're looking at the new version of the formula, income minus profit equals expenses, and there's not enough money to pay the bills, well, that's your business screaming for help. It's your business screaming for, okay, we're out of balance. We have to make that happen first. We have to earn enough money, right, to live. I would Dave Ramsey is not on this call, right? Because he might not like what I'm about to say. And yet if you take the profit first idea and you push it into Dave Ramsey's idea of getting rid of debt via the debt snowball, he would say, don't take profit first until all your debt is gone. And I believed that until I read this book. And then I thought, you know what? To delay this system until all your debt is gone, I think you're missing a massive opportunity. Minimally, you're missing the adjustment in the mindset and the habit that you're looking to form. Right? So to Chris's point, if it's $10 of profit that gets put aside, right, you spend $10 on coffee. So don't buy coffee that week or that day, whatever it is, right? Push that $10 aside, start the habit and the mindset shift of I'm putting profits aside and then deal with the rest of it. It's not, my point is, it's not a matter of put all the money in profit in the profit account first and then don't pay all your bills. That's not the point.
No.
Any other thoughts on that?
I think you have to not get caught up in the doing of it. You just literally have to take that first step and click the button on an online savings account or a checking account and put it together. And once you do that, it just makes it easier to click it and fill out another checking account and build those electronic envelopes of where you're going to disperse the money.
100%. 100%. Yeah, the first step is the first step, right?
It's going to be the hardest too.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah, and so for anyone on this call who hasn't taken that first step of opening a separate profit account, and I do encourage you to have it live in the cloud someplace. First of all, the cloud is paying better interest than bricks and mortar banks right now, and it's a way. You can't touch it so much, right? My cloud banking, until I need something, I look at once a month to make sure that the balances I have on my personal balance sheet are right, and I like to see how much interest I've earned. Other than that, I don't think about those accounts at all. and the profits get sent kind of automatically. Just set it up automatically. Make it an automatic withdrawal, right? So if you haven't done that, do that before next Friday, because next Friday is next time we're going to meet to talk through the next piece of this.
Hey,
What-
Rick,
yeah.
so I have done that as of January 1st. And I'm going to report December 1st what happened.
I love that. I love that. Right? Well, here's the other thing. Once you make that decision, you've got to decide that, like, you'll eat rice and beans for a month before you go and touch that money.
Mm.
That's like the untouchable money. You don't get to, that's not your emergency fund. That's the profit account, man. And Silva's right. I mean, I think the way that Debbie and I run our market centers and our businesses is we look at overall profits for bonus sake, for what do we do with the extra one time a year. Only one time a year. There's distribution systems throughout the year, and it's different in different businesses based on the profitability of the business. But in terms of the extra, it's once a year, and it's after we close December 31st, and we get to look back and say, okay, here's what the year looked like. Because to me, how can you make a decision in June or July about dispersing some kind of a bonus if you don't know what the fall will look like? Right? What if all of a sudden the business stops and there's no profits in the fall, and you've already dispersed all the extra, and your business wasn't profitable for the year because you made a decision too early?
Hey, Rick,
Yeah.
I said December 1st on purpose. I'm not going to wait until December 31st. I am curious to open this uncovered account on December 1st, so I will have 1 month to figure out what adjustments I should do as of January 1st of next year.
I love it. Well, and here's the good news, right? You're the boss of you. Nobody else is. So if your date is December 1st and your date is December, my point is be careful that we're not just using that. I mean, I love the conversation about bank balance. What is it called? Bank balance financing? Bank.
Right. Just looking at those numbers.
What does it call it?
Bank balance accounting. Bank balance accounting.
Yeah, right. Bank balance accounting. By the way, was it Roger Bannister? It was?
It is, I Googled it.
Yes.
Okay. So
He lived to be 88. Yes, he lived to be 88, and he died 2 years ago.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. What else? What else from these first two chapters? Well, that was a short mastermind. So I'll mention that. Go ahead.
One of the things I will say is it's long-term versus short-term. I think you have to really, I mean, when your philosophy of the profit into accounts that you can't get to, you're not saving for a moment, you're saving for a future. And I think the next bit in Ben Kinney is about retirement. And I know that retirement, which I hate the name retirement. I mean it long-term future. That has to start with consistent habitual deposits. And it's something that I said this the other day. They've eased the restrictions on removing money from those accounts. It's so hard to build it up, and it's so easy to take it out. And that's really the way it is with everything. It's so difficult to build it up, and it's so easy to just say, oh, I'm going to liquidate. No. You're killing your future.
Absolutely. Well, and it occurs to me that one of the best ways to not have that happen is to make sure that that things like emergency funds are funded so that when the crisis does show up, because let's face it, crises show up. I mean, that's just real, right? That's just human.
You have to have a different bucket to take it out of.
Right, right. Which goes right back to, income for almost all of us, and I mean almost all of us, capital US, right? Almost all humans, their income is their primary wealth building tool, right? And you've got to continue to monitor. I can remember a couple of years ago, a friend who had a primary business decided to go into the business of flipping houses, and went and did their first flip. And during that whole flip process, didn't mind the other business. And so the income in that other business started to decline. We had a conversation about the balancing act of that. And I said, with due respect, I think it's cool that you're going into this house flipping thing. However, does that business alone create enough income for you to fund that business and your life and keep your other business afloat? Because if this is slowly going down on this side and this isn't creating any income, you're going to sell this house and have nothing, which is almost exactly what happened, right? And then there was this crisis and panic. I can't remember which side was the flip, but there was this crisis and panic on the normal business side, because it went almost down to zero and they had to start from scratch to now start making money, because there wasn't a way to do anything on the flip side again, because there wasn't any money being made over here. Kind of gets nutty. Page 45, I think it's important to point out the 5 foundational accounts. Can we spend a little time there? Because that'll gear us up for next week's conversation when we start talking percentages and whatnot. So what are those 5 foundational accounts?
Income.
Income is the first one, right? And so that's you have an income account where everything you earn gets dumped into that. Does it stay there?
No.
No, right? It doesn't stay there. So the income account is really just a depository account that you funnel things. To me, it's like the it's like the waiting room at Grand Central Station, right? The money goes in there, but nobody stays there long term, right? There's a track and a place you got to go. You're either going out into the city or you're going back into a different train. And there's a place that it goes, so it moves. It stays there temporarily, but then moves. And so, what are the other 4 foundational accounts in this system?
Then you have your profit account.
Yeah, your profit account, right? So that's where you're going to send the money first that you're skimming off as profit.
Your owner's compensation account.
So the owner's compensation account, and for those of you who sell real estate for a living, the owner's compensation account, that's one that may either surprise or terrify you, right? Depending on how you look at it. Recognize, though, that as independent contractors, smart independent contractors save money to pay their salary. They don't just accept what closed that month. And if a lot closed that month, accept all of it. And if nothing closed that month, accept nothing, right? Because that's, again, another version of the roller coaster. It's another version of crisis living instead of building something steady. So that owner's compensation account is an important one to make sure that even as an independent contractor, you have some steady version of salary, even if it's low, and then you add on top of it when the months are better, right? And what else? We got 4.
Tax account and your operating expenses account. I like this concept of putting money into a specific bucket for operating expenses. I haven't done this yet, but I like it because it limits I mean, it's the whole thing is he says at that point, so, and if there isn't enough money left for expenses, this does not mean that you pull from other accounts. It means that your business is telling you that you can't afford those expenses.
Yeah. Yep. So true. So true.
Wow. That's a get your head wrapped around that. Holy cow. That's a biggie.
Well, that I think is the biggest mind shift. See, I don't really think that most people have a struggle getting their head around paying profit first, because that's appealing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest struggle is figuring out
Everything.
that what the lack of money to fund the operating expense account says about your business and about how you're living. I think that's the hardest part of this, because it is an indictment, right? It's, well, I won't use the word indictment. It does expose. I'll use the word expose. Indictment sounds so negative, but it does expose, right, some of our own financial inefficiencies or ineffectiveness, because it brings to light, wow, okay, I have $3,000 in expenses and I have $2,000 to pay it. Like those are alarm bells, and it's a great system to know, because too many of us, especially as real estate professionals, too many of us concede our income to the bills instead of recognizing that we have to do something different. We either have to make more money more consistently, or we have to reduce our expenses, or we have to do both of those things, right? And cautiously funding the operating expense account, whether you're doing it for your household. P.S. That's another cool point to make. If you're only thinking about this in terms of running your business, I would rethink that too. I would run your household under the same system. When I first read this book, I came into Debbie and I said, I am so bent. And she said, why? I said, because I missed a massive opportunity. I've been running my household finances like this for a decade. I didn't think to write a book about it. Crap.
Some of us have a lot of work to do, but I'm looking forward to the challenge.
And you know what's funny, Diane, is I think all of us have a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, every time, the bar steps up a little bit, you start feeling a little fear and inadequacy, and then you just do it and all of that. And I guess my barometer is more of like, I don't really budget. I don't do any of that. I just have a natural barometer. Like if I feel like I'm spending too much money, then it stops. And, it would be nice to actually quantify that and get it, get a system. So it's all good.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's funny. I want to pay you a compliment, because I was talking to the team leaders the other day who both were unable to be on the call that both you and Chris and then Kim and Dan were panelists on about leads. And I was talking with them about how impressed I was with what the four of you brought to the table, especially since three of you are either brand new full-time, or within your first 2 to 3 full years in this business. You're all members of the Agent Leadership Council, and you all spoke as if you were seasoned pros about how to do this. And so I was talking to them. I was if your ears were ringing, it was that, because I was really impressed by how you guys ran that mastermind, or that panel session. And Diane, something you just said, I want to point out to you that in that panel session, one of the things you said that struck me was, you said something to the effect of, I was never all that interested in making phone calls or whatever, and now I just kind of do it, and it's working for me. And so your ability to look at something and say, okay, well, that's how successful people work in this industry, so I think I'll just do that, and then have the results come back to you. This thing is exactly that. And so you've already proven that you know how to do that and you're willing to push through it. And this is just the same exact thing.
Yeah, like I outright told Jen I wasn't making calls when I met with her. And I was like, all right, you know, I guess this is what I have to do to, you know, succeed in this business. So let's just go and do it.
Yeah, and now you're succeeding in the business. Imagine that.
There you go.
Client acquisition, right?
Yeah, yeah. Client acquisition is at all costs.
May I ask you a question, please?
Yeah.
I couldn't read the book because I'm going to receive it on June 3rd. Where in these five foundational accounts is the savings portion of the savings that we need to do? Huh?
I would call that your profit account.
Profit, right? But not all of it should go into savings. Then profit should stem into a few others. Like, for example,
Keep it simple.
keep it simple. No, because I know, I learned from all the books that I read so far since January 1st that there should be an envelope for entertainment. It could be 1%, 5%, 10%, but you need to call it entertainment.
That's part of your operating expenses. Right? Your operating expenses for your household include your mortgage payment and your food and your clothing and your entertainment and your all that stuff. Those are your operating expenses for your household.
Got it. Thank you.
That's what I would say.
Thank you.
I think that the first thing that I'm going to implement is number 4, which is enforce a rhythm, because I have a kind of, I kind of live like Diane a little bit. I have those ideas. I manage the money responsibly. However, the opportunity of this system is much bigger. I can see that. And what I like this rhythm, enforce the rhythm of the 10th and the 25th. Whether or not that money is there, it has to make you very aware of what needs to happen next. And you do what you can and you juggle it and you take the steps that you're able to on those 2 dates and you keep that rhythm going and that regimen going.
Right.
It's habit building. So much of this is forcing the habit and changing the habits that you're currently in, right? Because most of us aren't in that kind of a habit, right? And so we have to get habitual about it so that we're not thinking about it, so that we can focus. Because I think part of the issue is before this kind of thing becomes habitual, you hyper focus on what you don't have to fund these accounts.
That's what I think. It's so important to just. It's important to think, but try for a second to turn that off and just literally do it, and you'll figure it out afterwards. Once you put those accounts into whatever online bank or wherever, and then you see them and you figure out the percentages of what's going to go where and however you want to do that, it'll happen.
Yeah, I think that I can't remember, Chris, if you and I were having a conversation around this, or it might have been something that you said in a different forum. I think you said it, and if not, I'm giving you credit for it. It was the idea of, because here's how I heard it. I heard it as, be careful, because some of you have certain behavioral styles that create rigidity about, well, this is the way to do this, and there's only one way to do this, and it's either I'm either doing it right or I might as well not do it at all. And what you just said was get into the habit of just taking action, regardless of what the action is. If the percentages are tweaked a little in the beginning because it freaks you out, well then tweak them in the beginning, but still do it. Am I putting words in your mouth, or is that pretty much what you just said?
Beats me, but I think I agree. Take action, less thinking. I think if you're gonna go wrong fast and figure it out quick and then turn around.
Yeah, that actually sounds more like you than what I said. The other one sounds more like me, I think. So I'm sure that's what you said. And I like put it in my high C brain and started to churn it out a little bit differently. You know, this is one of those scenarios that for those of you who are processors and thinkers, right, we run into, we hit a wall, right? I read this and the high D side of me was like, oh my God, we got to do this. And it's awesome. Let's do it tomorrow. And then the high C was like, whoa. Let's think about this. Let's break this down. Let's figure it out. Let's do a spreadsheet. Let's have a pro forma and see what this looks like 3 months from now and 6 months from now. And is it really the smart thing to do? And right. And Chris's point is like, tell the second guy to knock it off and just let the first guy show up and do it. And then fix it if you're screwing it up. Because it's not like the world's going to come to an end.
Yeah. And for those of us who are, I'm a negative C. I have probably like 1%. So, you know, I happen to be married to a high C. So we work on things together and he has helped me, although there's a lot of frustration on his part because I don't want to do it. So, you know, it's a process. You're right. And it's really, you know, forcing yourself to figure it out.
Yeah.
Can I ask another question, please?
Yeah.
So somewhere in this whole conversation, where can we put in the emergency fund? Just so, I mean, I think I'm turning into a high C working with all these spreadsheets and everything right now. So just to be honorable to Dave Ramsey.
Yeah. So what I would
anywhere.
What I would do is I would use the profit account as the emergency fund until it hits that level, then move someplace else and then keep the profit account going. That way you're working the muscle and creating the habit. But you know that as that hits $1,000, you're going to move it out. And then maybe the use of your profit account for your first 12 months or 6 months is to build and fund your emergency funds, but the process is still going. Does that sound like the right answer for those of you who are reading this book as well?
It does.
Sounded like you read my mind.
he says open one account. He says open the profit account. That's your first step. Open that. So that is the account. That's where you put extra money. And then if you have to call it something else, just continue to seed that profit account with 1%. And I like his low bar method because that's how you can start. It's building that habit, whether it's 1% or $10 or whatever that amount is. It's the habit. It's the habit. It's the habit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, we skipped over one account. We didn't have a conversation around it. I think we should. And that is the tax account. Because I'll tell you what.
Yep. That's a biggie.
I see more people who screw around with not paying taxes. That is definitely a sign of crisis living. Like when you're spending the government's money to pay your mortgage or to put food on the table, that is crisis living. And this system, if you do nothing else, and again, transparently take it from someone who has done it both ways. I have done it really, really wrong, and I've done it really, really right. And the opportunity to do it really, really right did not coincide with me making more money necessarily. It was learning a different habit and recognizing that I was living my personal life above my means. That was what switched that switch over into funding taxes religiously. Mm-hmm. And it was again, it had nothing, because I think a lot of people think, oh, well, when you're making more money, it's so much easier to do that. I actually think the answer is the opposite. Because when you're making more money, it's far easier to spend the more that you're making, right? And ignore the responsibility of taxes. So whatever amount of money you're making, be really regimented to recognize that anywhere from 25 to 35% of it easily off the top is not yours. Mm-hmm. Is not yours. I started calling it stealing in my head. I'm stealing from the government now to go on vacation. That seems like something I could probably go to jail for. Maybe I should stop doing that.
No, recognize that
I will tell you,
money. Mhm.
Sorry, say that again, Debbie.
Recognizing it as somebody else's money. It is
Yeah.
somebody, it is not your money, sadly, but true, not your money.
And I will tell you, if this is one of those things that you're looking to tame in your financial world, I am here to tell you that the first time that the estimated tax date shows up and you can open your checkbook and just write the check for the estimated taxes, and there's no drama around it. Oh my, I wanted to throw myself a parade. It was like one of the best days of my entire life, because I had been doing it the other way and constantly with the struggle and putting it off and trying to catch up in April and no. Right. And it relieves so much stress and pressure from your everyday world, knowing that, and the personal side of things started to radically change. It's like I had to spend less money and do less things for a certain period of time to create that habit. There was sacrifice involved, although I don't really look at it as a sacrifice so much, because again, I've convinced myself that I was stealing from the government.
And guess what?
Well,
the way it works on your mindset, you're all of a sudden going to start feeling a sense of abundance, and then your happiness go higher, and then everything from there gets better and better until you actually look forward towards the day when you are going to pay your taxes.
yeah.
And this changes your way of doing business and thinking about your life and yourself on a completely different trajectory.
And it actually brings more to you, right? Doesn't it, Silva? Because you're far more productive when you're not weighed down with stress and anxiety, especially financial stress and anxiety.
Yeah, because you stop living in fear. You start living in abundance, in a feel of abundance.
So true. So true. The other thing I want to underline and make sure that we recognize before we move off of these chapters is something Debbie said before, and that is start the habit. I'm not so sure it's well, we'll get to that in the next chapter, but make sure that operating expense, start thinking about how you're going to work that. As a matter of fact, I know it's coming up in the next two chapters, but I want you to be thinking about it so when you hit it, you say, this is something we need to really pay attention to. Having that separate account to pay all the expenses out of, and funding that one time a month or twice a month with an agreed upon amount of money based on a budget, it changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Right? It just.
I'm so happy I started this earlier this year. I mean, incredibly excited for the future.
Does it not make you, I'm going to say that word again, more aware of A, what you're doing, and B, what you have to be doing, right?
It makes me feel like I'm running a business, like I'm running the show, and it's not running me. And that's like power, it's control, and it's definitely empowering.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Huge. You know, my son is going to be 23 years old in July, and to this day, we still, the account he uses as his income account is a joint account that we opened when he went off to college, right? And so I still have access to that. He hasn't kicked me out of it yet. So the conversation that we have twice a month, I know when he gets paid, I know how much he gets paid, and I know exactly what he needs to live, which is very little right now because he's living in my house, right? And so we have this conversation twice a month. It says, okay, so where do you pay your bills from? Like, well, I pay that out of this account. Great. So how much are we transferring from this income account that you have to cover your bills? And he goes through it. You know, he has his car payment, and he has some incidentals. He moves that money, and then there's always leftover because he makes more than he spends because he doesn't have a whole lot of expenses right now. And the fascinating thing is, like, when he graduated from college a year ago, I said to him, because he used to have just an account, and then when he started to work and make more money more consistently, I said, no, let's give you a cloud account. So he now has his own cloud account, well, I say it's his own. It's a joint account with me as well, and it's not because I'm a control freak. It's because it's easier sometimes for me to help him if my name's on it, right? And so he created this cloud account, and so for all intents and purposes, he has his own profit account now at 22 and a half years old, because anything that doesn't go to operating expenses is not allowed to stay in the income account. We pull it up into the cloud account, which is ultimately his profit account, so that he can continue to save. And he's been doing a version of that since he was 5, 4, 3, 2 years old, right? With help. I'm going to tell you that as a 22 and a half year, almost 23-year-old, he's closing in on $40,000 sitting in that account to start his life with, so that if he needs to go and buy a house or use a down payment, or if something happened, almost $40,000 in what he has saved by doing that. And so he doesn't even realize it yet, but I'm using him as an example to show you that this stuff really works, right? If you just get rid of the money and put it someplace else over time, and you all work. I mean, he's only been working for less than 12 months full time in like a real job. He's been in school for the last 20 years of his life. So recognize that there are those opportunities. And Silva, when you wake up and on December the 1st and say, okay, what does that look like? Man, every once in a while he'll say to me, Dad, what do I have in that account? And I tell him, he's like, oh, really?
That's nice.
Like, yeah. But don't get too excited because you can't touch it. So if you want to see it, there it is. Okay. Now go away.
You know what's interesting? I've been carrying on about this thing that they're doing in Connecticut, where you're sponsoring a high school senior. And the kid that I decided to adopt, I said, tell me a little bit about yourself. And he's very interested in learning about investing and real estate investing. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm going to give him as one of his graduation gifts, the Millionaire Real Estate Investor. And, because he already shows interest, and he's 18 maybe, and he sounds like a really cool kid. So, it's good to get everybody started early. And I'm going to look into a quantum leap for him. I don't know what that involves, but if he wants to do it, but you never know.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. Anything else in our last 30 seconds?
Can we fast forward to next Friday?
Is this going to be every Friday?
It's at least going to be next Friday, and likely the Friday after that. Again, this is one of those books that there's not a ton to talk about. It's a matter of starting to manipulate and work the system, and so that creates more of the conversation, which is why this week seemed a little like, all right, what else is there to talk about? Because we're really diving into the stuff. So it'll at least be this Friday, and then the following Friday, and then we'll see how much more we need.
I don't think we talked about this, but if you need something to feel good about, I don't think anyone in this class was quite as stupid as Michael Mikhailovich was with his money. Holy crap. Was that reckless? Was he just a reckless dum-dum?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Right?
He had to learn the hard way.
Him and Keith Cunningham, right? Keith Cunningham talks about how
he made his $100 million mistake. Right?
I'm awesome at making $100 million. I'm also awesome at losing $100 million. I'm thinking to myself, all right, you know what? I think I want to learn all these lessons and be able to speak to this stuff like these guys can do without the loss part of it. I think I don't want to have to experience the losing all this money version of this conversation. So here's what we're doing. We're doing chapters 3 through the end of 6. So you'll stop at Destroy Your Debt. So where we are now is 48, I think. We'll read through 113. And that'll be for next Friday.
Good. Okie dokie.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks for playing. It's always fun to talk to you. See you a little later.
Thank you.
Ciao.